The villagers laughed at her for agreeing to marry a beggar. They laughed long before the marriage day arrived, long before any vows were spoken, long before anyone asked her if she was afraid. Not because she was stubborn, not because she was a thief or a disgrace. They laughed because the man who loved her had no shoes on his feet, no house to call his own, no family name anyone respected, and carried everything he owned inside a dirty, worn-out sack. To them, that was enough reason. Before we go on, I would like to kindly ask that you please subscribe to the channel, like the video and drop a comment. It would mean so much to me. Thank you, moi. What none of them knew, what even she herself did not yet know, was that this single decision would alter the fate of the entire village in ways no one could have imagined. And it all began with a girl who had grown up with nothing except kindness. Amoka was 25 years old, and life had never been gentle with her. Her story did not begin with joy or celebration. It began with rejection. Many years earlier, her mother Judith had been driven out of her father's house when she became pregnant out of wedlock. The old man, Amoka's grandfather, said she had brought shame upon the family. He did not care about tears. He did not care about apologies. He did not care about the unborn child growing inside her womb. All he cared about was what the village would say. So Judith left with nothing but the clothes on her body and a child growing inside her. She walked for days, sleeping by the roadside, until she reached a neighboring village where no one knew her name or her shame. At the edge of that village stood an abandoned hut. The roof leaked. The walls were cracked. The floor was bare earth. But it was shelter. That hut became their home. That was where Amoka was born. No ceremony. No visitors. No father's family. Just a young woman crying in pain, holding her newborn child, whispering through tears, "God, please help me raise her better than my own life." They had no land. No farm. No relatives. No support. From the time Amoka could walk, she worked. She followed her mother to other people's farms, weeding under the hot sun, harvesting crops that would never be theirs, carrying loads heavier than her small body. When there was no farm work, Amoka fetched water for families. When there was no water job, she gathered firewood and sold it. Some days they ate only once. Some nights they slept hungry. Sometimes rain poured through the broken roof and soaked their clothes. Yet Judith never allowed bitterness to live in their home. Every night she told her daughter, "Amoka, no matter how poor you are, always value kindness. People's hearts are more important than their pockets." And Amoka listened. She grew into a beautiful young woman, not just in appearance, but in spirit. The villagers noticed. Some parents pointed her out to their children. "Look at Amoka," they would say. "She is poor, but she is respectful. She works harder than rich people's children. She never insults anyone." But deep down, many still saw her as the girl from the abandoned hut, the daughter of the woman who brought shame. Amoka never complained. She simply worked. One evening, after fetching water from the stream, she met a stranger sitting under a tree along the path. His clothes were torn. His feet were bare. A dirty sack rested beside him. "Sister," the man said softly, "please, can I drink water?" Amoka did not hesitate. She placed her clay pot down and handed him her cup. The man drank like someone who had been thirsty for days. "Thank you," he said quietly. "May God reward you." She smiled and walked away. The next day, she saw him again at the village square, sitting under the big iroko tree. When he saw her, he stood up. "Sister, please, can I have water again?" Her container was empty. She had used the last of it at home. She looked at him and said, "Wait here. I will go and fetch water." He thought she was joking. She wasn't. Amoka walked all the way back to the stream, filled her pot, and returned. The man was still there. His eyes widened in shock. "You came back?" he asked. She nodded. "I promised." He stared at her like someone seeing kindness for the first time. "Thank you," he said slowly. "I will return this kindness one day." From that day, they began to talk. His name was Daniel. He said he had no home, no family, no work. He moved from place to place begging. Amoka invited him to their hut. When food was little, she reduced her own portion and gave him. Judith never complained. Instead, she said, "Give him more." The villagers began to talk. "Why is that girl always with that beggar? Does she not know her level? Is poverty not enough for them already?" Daniel began helping on farms. He worked hard. He stopped begging. One evening he told Judith, "I want to marry your daughter." Judith was shocked. "But you are poor," she said. Daniel looked her straight in the eyes. "I will work hard. Your daughter will never sleep hungry. I promise." Judith turned to Amoka. "What do you say?" Amoka answered calmly, "I like him. He is a good man." That was how the beggar married Amoka. The whole village laughed. They said, "Poverty is in their blood." They said, "Who marries a beggar?" They did not know that the beggar was a secret billionaire. On the morning of the wedding, the village woke up ready to mock, not to celebrate. Women stood at their doorways shaking their heads. Men gathered under the iroko tree laughing. "Have you seen her husband? The one that sleeps with his life inside a sack." Amoka heard everything as she walked to the stream that morning. Her heart was heavy, but her back was straight. Inside the hut, Judith prepared the little they had. No cow, no goat, no musicians. Just 2 pots of food and borrowed palm wine. "Are you afraid?" Judith asked. "No, Mama," Amoka replied. "I am sure of him." Daniel arrived in clean but old clothes, borrowed sandals on his feet, his sack beside him. The elder asked the questions. Daniel answered with confidence. Amoka said yes. People laughed. That night, rain leaked through the roof as they lay on a thin mat. "Thank you for believing in me," Daniel whispered. "Thank you for loving me," Amoka replied. Neither of them knew what was coming. The days that followed were hard. Hunger visited often. Work was scarce. Yet their hut was filled with peace. Until one night, Daniel disappeared. He returned at dawn with food, medicine, and money. And from that moment, everything began to change. Because Daniel was never a beggar. And the village that laughed was about to kneel. The village did not sleep that night. After Daniel returned with food, medicine, and money, whispers moved faster than fire in dry grass. People gathered in small groups, lowering their voices, glancing toward the hut as if it might suddenly speak back to them. Where did he go? Who helped him? How did a man with nothing return with so much? Judith's strength slowly returned. She could sit outside again, breathing properly, watching the dusty road. Amoka continued going to the farms, but her heart was no longer settled. Questions followed her everywhere. She wanted to ask Daniel, but something in his calm stopped her. He was peaceful, but there was depth in him now, a quiet certainty she could not explain. Daniel began leaving early every morning and returning late. Sometimes he came back with food. Sometimes with nothing. Yet his face never carried desperation again. It was the face of a man walking toward something he already understood. One afternoon, Amoka followed him. She felt guilty, but her spirit would not rest. She waited until he passed the palm trees at the edge of the village, then followed at a distance. Daniel did not go toward the farms or the market. He took the bush path that led far beyond Umuoma. After nearly an hour of walking, Amoka reached a clearing. A black vehicle stood there, polished and expensive, completely out of place. 2 men in clean clothes waited beside it. Amoka's heart skipped violently. She hid behind a tree. Daniel walked up to them. The men bowed. Her knees almost gave way. She watched as they spoke. One handed Daniel a thick brown envelope. Daniel opened it, checked its contents, nodded, and gave instructions. One man wrote quickly. They bowed again. Daniel turned and walked back toward the village. Amoka ran. That night, she lay beside him awake, staring at the roof, listening to his breathing, wondering who her husband truly was. The next morning, a truck arrived. It was big, white, new. It stopped near their hut, and the driver asked, "Is this the home of Daniel?" People gathered instantly. Amoka stepped forward. "Yes." The man handed her documents and began unloading bags of rice, beans, oil, cartons of food, clothes. Then he drove away. The village went silent. Judith's mouth trembled. Who sent this? When Daniel returned and found the crowd waiting, Amoka looked at him, tears filling her eyes. "Who are you?" He took a deep breath. "I will explain, but not here." That night, inside the hut, Daniel told them the truth. "My name is Daniel Okori. My father owns companies in the city. Years ago, my family rejected me because I refused to marry the woman they chose. I left everything behind. I wanted to live among the poor, to understand life." Judith cried. "I met you," he said, holding Amoka's hands. "You gave me water when you had none. You shared food when you were hungry. I never lied about my love. I only hid my wealth." Silence filled the hut. Outside, the village slept, unaware that its world was about to change. The next day, the black vehicle returned, this time driving straight to the village square. Men stepped out with documents and a loudspeaker. "Good people of Umuoma," the voice announced. "We are here on behalf of Mr. Daniel Okori." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "He is the new owner of the land surrounding this village. He is building a health center, a school, and a borehole. Construction begins next week." People froze. Then Daniel stepped forward. The same man who once begged for water now stood in authority. Elders trembled. Women knelt. Men removed their caps. "This village gave me life when I had nothing," Daniel said. "Now I give back." Construction began immediately. Trucks arrived daily. Foundations were dug. Walls rose. The land where Amoka once gathered firewood became a place of hope. And then the past arrived. One afternoon, an old man stood outside the hut, leaning on a walking stick. Judith froze. "Father." He fell to his knees. "I was wrong," he cried. "Forgive me." The village watched as pride collapsed. Judith lifted him. "You broke me," she said calmly, "but God healed me." Amoka held his hand. "We forgive you." That day, Umuoma learned that the past can kneel before the future. The health center was completed. The school opened. Water flowed where thirst once ruled. Daniel gathered the village and spoke softly. "Never judge a person's worth by their condition. Kindness saved my life. Today, it saves this village." Years later, people would ask how Umuoma changed. And the elders would say, "It started with a poor girl who gave a beggar water." And Amoka, who once had nothing, never forgot. Because wealth did not change her. Kindness revealed her.